Start up then. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second part of the IIMS Canada 2021 AGM meeting. We just kind of put together a seminar with a couple of speakers and also Mike from IMS headquarters, just to give a sort of a quick rundown what those folks are getting up to in their plans. So once again, thank you very much for taking time out from your busy schedules, and welcome to the members, and also any non-members out there. Welcome, and I hope you find these seminars interesting and informative. Thank you very much, and over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Lachlan, and welcome to all of you. You join me in a very sunny middle of the UK. I live in the Cotswolds, and we've had a very sunny day to here. It's lovely. I hope you're all keeping safe. I know that it's a challenging time for all of us. I'd like to take the next 20 minutes, just a few slides for you, just to talk to you about some of what's been going on at IMS over the last, 15 months, I suppose, and particularly over the time that the pandemic has been raging. A quick overview. Last year was incredibly tough, but now when I look back on it, it was incredibly rewarding. So the last two face-to-face conferences I attended, in fact, the last one was Vancouver last year, which Lachlan referenced earlier in the AGM. So I did Baltimore and Vancouver, hugely successful, and lockdown hit. And of course, we have done no face-to-face meetings anywhere in the world since then. But then the strangest phenomenon occurred. And I think it's possibly true for you guys in Canada as well. Marine surveyors just got very busy. And I'm not just talking about in the UK, although we could see it happening in the UK. Europe got busy, Australia got busy, America got very busy. I think it's the same in Canada for many of you as well. I think simply people, certainly in the UK, decided that the only way they could escape COVID was to buy a boat, which was fine to a point, except of course then we all got locked down. They couldn't use their boats. But I was talking to surveyors who, one in particular who's semi-retired, specialises in small motorboats in the UK, and he likes to do 1 or 2 surveys a week maximum these days. He was telling me he could have done 9 or 10 surveys a week, and it went on week after week after week. Indeed, some surveyors told me they posted a record trading year last year. Sales of leisure craft boomed all over the world. The stats I saw from America alone up 13%. And certainly in the UK, brokers started running low on what I would call quality stock. And interestingly enough, we've seen the same thing, same pattern developing this year again. So far this year, surveyors are reporting business is good. There's plenty of work around and so on. All of this necessitated developing a COVID-19 strategy. And I've never worked in a pandemic. Of course, none of us have, I suspect. It presented some extraordinary challenges for us. We rose to those challenges and the business actually blossomed. Let me just let in some people here who are joining us. One of whom is our next speaker. So it's always nice to see the next speaker arriving. That's good. Now, let me just talk about some of the good. Our membership, despite pandemic and COVID, grew really strongly last year. I'll touch on that in a little while later. Students wanting to study 2 professional qualifications, that's the professional qualification in marine surveying for yacht and small craft and for commercial ships. Actually, we achieved record study numbers last year, well over 200 involved. Lachlan referenced earlier a range of online seminars. Those attracted over 700 delegates, hugely successful, and we've continued them on this year as well. And if you've not picked up on some of those, I would encourage you to go and have a root around on the IMS website. One of the biggest challenges we faced was moving some of our face-to-face training courses into an online space, an online environment, and that was challenging, but we have made the transition successfully. The report magazine, a bit more on that coming up shortly. Number of pages grew, partly because I thought surveyors might have a little bit more time on their hands. I'm not sure that was the case, but I wanted to try and add extra value. And I think for me, the biggest challenge was most of my team, including myself, found ourselves working from home. And we'd moved the business into a paperless environment. We use Office 365. We were all able to work from home, share files from home. It proved to be a seamless operation. And as a consequence, I think we've managed to provide the same level of customer service to all of our members. And remarkably, the organization remained profitable. In fact, last year proved to be a record year for us. I think one of the biggest successes from last year, and I know I mentioned this when I came out to Vancouver, was we were in the final stages of completing the purchase of a new headquarters for the Institute. And to be honest, I half thought about pulling the plug when COVID came along and really hit, because I wasn't sure that investing money at that time was necessarily a wise thing to do in tying up our capital. But now when I look back with hindsight, it probably was the best thing we possibly could have done. Morrow's house is now ours. We own 100% of it. We don't actually occupy the whole building. Some of you might be aware we have the top space. The bottom bit is let out to the guys who used to be our landlords, now our tenants, in a role reversal. The picture on the right is really bang up to date. That's a picture taken just 2 days ago. One of the things that comes with an old building, parts of which are 500 years old, is some maintenance requirements. And when we bought the building, we were certainly advised there was some work to do. The windows have just been completed. That window there is the bottom right-hand window you see in the left-hand picture. And I put that in just to explain a little tale. They pulled out the old window. We think that had been in place for about 150 years. The wooden lintel to the top was completely rotten. I was pulling shreds of wet rot wood out, and the whole front of the building was in danger of collapsing. So right at the 11th hour, the guys said we need to put new steel lintels in on both of them. Actually, they were both the same. They propped up the building, and those went in. You can see we've got a bit of finishing work to do, but they are in and we're making significant progress. And I think of everything we achieved last year, for me, that was the most satisfying thing. What about the not so good? Some of you will be aware we are a certifying authority, licensed by the MCA to code vessels that are used commercially up to 24 meters. As people, as charterers, particularly in Southern Europe, suddenly realized they couldn't charter their vessels with COVID, suddenly people stopped actually coding their boats, and we took a bit of a financial hit there. Pleased to say that has returned. It looks like a short-term blip, and we're now back on course. As I say, our face-to-face training ended, and conferences ended, and that was a sadness. We had to mothball our registered marine coatings inspectors and international registered marine insulation inspectors programs. The ERMI one is unlikely to return anytime soon, but we are working on RMCI. I've got a slide on that coming up. And sadly for us, most of the team caught COVID, and myself included. And I have to say it was utterly miserable. I physically could not move for 3 days. Please just try and steer clear of it. You really don't want it. It came in innocently through one of my colleagues, came into the office, and within 4 days, almost all of us bar 2 were down with it. And indeed, one of my colleagues was hospitalized. She's fine, she's made a full recovery, but just utterly miserable. A little bit on the membership. I was hoping today to be able to tell you that we'd passed the 1,000 member mark. When I looked yesterday, we're at 998. We do have about 40 applications in process currently, so we are going to inevitably move through the 1,000 mark anytime soon. Highest level we've ever been. So again, I take that as a sign that we're doing something right. New applications absolutely surged on the back of COVID. I have some theories as to why that might be, but they're only theories. We processed 160 new applications last year. Affiliates and full memberships are the categories that grew the strongest. And I think the one thing that I have noticed particularly is, particularly those who operate on the worldwide stage, where surveyors are unable to travel, they've been using the IIMS membership network to engage a surveyor in another part of the world to go and do the work and split the fee. And I certainly know some surveyors in Southampton who've done a lot of work with surveyors in the UAE and Dubai to actually do that kind of shared network. So you're safe in the knowledge that if you engage another member, they are going to be of a certain standard. So just a few of the things you can do. Doesn't matter if you're a member of the Institute or not. So you can access and download and read the report magazine, and you absolutely must do that. I really encourage you to do that. I have a slide in a minute that will show you how to do that. We have, I think, now the largest collection of safety briefings anywhere on the internet. Again, all freely available, all sorts there from all over the world. Valuable source of information accessible through the website. You can listen to podcasts. I think we've got 70 online the last time I looked. We have about 2,000 news stories and articles on the website. Again, all free to browse and search. Definitely recommend, if you've not looked at the YouTube channel, we've got 250 videos on the IMS YouTube channel, free to watch. And of course, you should be following IMS on LinkedIn and Twitter, particularly LinkedIn. We post quite a lot of content on LinkedIn. Just search IMS Marine Surveying on LinkedIn and make a request to join, and we'll accept that. So the report magazine, pages have grown. I think the last issue was 108 pages. I'm working on the June edition at the moment, likely to be 116 pages. It's available in PDF format or in e-reader format. Pick and choose your preference. Well over 100 pages now as standard. On the left-hand side, you're looking at the IMS website homepage. If you scroll across to media and drop down, you'll see the report magazine. You can access the current issue and any of the back issues. One of the most interesting things is I never really knew how many people read the report magazine. It's a hard thing to know, but we found a little website tracker device that we were able to put on back in September last year. And since September last year, we've had 12,000 downloads of the report magazine. So that gives you not just the current issue, but back issues. I've seen issues going back as far as 4 or 5 years that were attracting 200, 300, 400, 500 downloads a month. So please, it's a free tool. Everybody who's in the business should be reading it. Big ship guys, small craft guys, I'm sure you'll find something in there of interest. I always reference the Handy Guide collection. There are now 26 in the series. We've added a couple recently. The series, if you don't know it, what a marine surveyor needs to know about. Available in PDF or paperback formats. In fact, the one on the right here, the metacentric stability inclining experiment heel and rolling test, available at £10. I can't quite do the conversion into Canadian dollars. Is that 18 Canadian dollars maybe? I'm not sure what the exchange rate is. That one is only available in PDF download, but all of the other guides are available in both formats. Tried very hard to sensibly price those books so that they don't break the bank for anybody. I wanted them to be affordable by the majority. And we've had very strong sales on those, all written by experts in their fields, and I would thoroughly recommend them to you. The professional qualifications have gone from strength to strength. Splits 50-50 actually between yacht and small craft and cargo and commercial ship. We have a quarterly intake. We've just literally closed the April intake, and we had, I think, 32 who've come on board in that quarter. So last year was our strongest ever year with our qualifications. Well over 220 now who are actively studying. We've spent a lot of time and effort reviewing the modules. We've taken a couple of out of circulation, one being heavy lift because I thought that wasn't quite right. We've updated not all of them, but we're going through this constant process of making sure the material is good and relevant. We've added a business management module. I've just had the first couple of students come through that. We've launched a whole series of freshers seminars. So for people joining the program, we encourage them to come onto a Zoom meeting. We get a couple of markers and assessors so they can talk to them. People ask questions like, how many words should I be writing as part of my assignment for module 1 or module 2? So we give them a lot of practical information. And we started now to run online tutor seminars as well. These are closed for students. We don't make a charge for that. It's all part of the service. And we've done 6 or 7 now. So we'll put an expert up, one of the authors of the particular modules, and they'll do an hour or 2 hours as long as the students want and they can ask questions. And then finally, I always thought the one thing missing from our qualification was a practical course. And I appreciate it's very hard being a worldwide organization to put on a practical course for everybody internationally. It just isn't practical. But we have got a venue in Lyme Regis on the south coast of the UK, the Boat Building Academy, We held our first one despite COVID in December, just before we went into lockdown. We were allowed to have 6 people on site. They were on site for a week. They had a fabulous time, and it definitely added something to the mix. They got their hands dirty. They were able to get involved with GRP repairs, physically doing GRP repairs, looking at bad GR repairs, and so on, and had a great time. So this year, I'm told we can have 12 on site, and we'll be rolling that out in the next couple of weeks. The Marine Surveying Academy, MSA, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Institute. You ought to be aware of some of the stuff we put through there. We try and push aside other training that's not relevant to the Institute. So we run for IMCA, the EC Accredited Vessel Inspector Program. That has been a challenging program to deliver in the last year. These are guys who are getting on board typically to do audits on offshore assets. And that's been tricky for obvious reasons. But it has continued and is coming back quite strong again now after a bit of a dip. Since we launched that program, coming up for 6 years ago now, we've had 700 applications for accreditation. They don't all pass. I think we put about 540 through as accredited AVIs. And we just started in the middle of last year, the 5-year revalidation of the program. So people are invited to come forward to be reassessed. We look at their CPD, which, by the way, is mandatory. CPD is not mandatory within the Institute, but for that program it is. And that's been a particularly successful partnership with IMCA. The Registered Marine Coatings Inspector qualification, we had to suspend it. It was a practical course, 5 days, held typically in a hotel, access to a boatyard, aimed at guys who are inspecting very expensive super yacht coating systems and upskilling them to do that work. And that's been a challenge, and we haven't yet quite got that finished. It's been difficult because day 5 was a practical exam where you're actually inviting people to look at test plates, use some equipment, and then actually physically test the plates and then write an assignment based on what you've found. So you can understand that's been a challenge, but we will get there. And the IIMS qualification is suspended for the time being. A little bit on external representation. We do spread our resources and our wings quite wide. We've been involved with the Australian government now for some time. We got heavily involved in a hearing. We seem to be the only organisation prepared to say how we saw it in Australia. The performance of AMSA, which, if you don't know them, is the maritime regulator in Australia, had really hit some difficult times, and we are involved in its ongoing reorganisation. So there's legislation changes over there. It's great to be involved with that. I've been involved for more years than I care to remember now, trying to develop a certification scheme for MCA coding examiners. I touched on certifying authorities earlier. You need to be approved to do coding as an MCA examiner. And there are 5 organisations in the UK, and we all seem to play by different rules. That has to stop. And I'm quite close now to rolling out a certification programme. Those guys, not just only in the UK, we have quite a lot of guys in Europe, a few out in the States, and 1 or 2 in Australia. So I'm hoping we'll have some movement on that later this year. We've had an absolute horrendous fallout after Brexit. None of us quite saw it coming. If you are an RYA qualified skipper, for example, your qualification now, at the moment as it stands, does not wash in Europe. That is a major headache for people. Some of our surveyors who have fleets in the Mediterranean have been told by the Croatian flag, for example, the Greek flag, no, you're not welcome anymore. We've had boats reflagging to the Malta flag in particular. Malta are now literally all at sea because they can't cope with the volume. So the fallout from Brexit has been hideous. And to be honest, the only way it's going to get resolved is when the British government sits down with each of the 27 remaining member states and makes a deal with each one. There's got to be a reciprocal deal in place. And then it looks like we might have some way forward. But it's difficult. The Institute of Diagnostic Engineers, not something you will probably know. I suspect most of you, or probably all of you. But we've been in discussion with them now for some while with a view to acquiring the Institute. They've fallen on hard times. Their chairman and president actually are members of the IIMS, and they've reached out to us, and I'm hoping within the next 10 days I might have some news on that. I'm quite keen to take it over and keep it running ahead. I skipped over this screen, I shouldn't have done. So we've just announced a new professional qualification. It's a standalone one. It sits alongside the two I referred to earlier, but this is just a professional qualification in marine corrosion. I can't find much really in the marketplace that is very specific for marine surveyors. We've made this directly relevant to marine surveyors. We're producing 10 modules being written by a guy called Mike Lewis, who's an absolute expert in this field, works for the British Stainless Steel Association in the UK. You'll be required to take 7 of the 10 modules. The testing will be done using ClassMarker, which is an online software package. So it'll be multiple choice testing on each module. The first course rolls out in June, the second one in November. We're doing them by means of live events, live training sessions, live lectures, and then if you don't pick up the lecture because of the time zone issues, you'll be able to pick up the video that we'll make of each one and then sit the test. I've seen the first 3 modules. They look absolutely first class. So very excited about this. If you want more information, again, you'll find it on the IMS website. So just really current challenges facing surveyors. Stay safe. You know, COVID-19 is here. It's raging in all parts of the world, really, worse in some, and we must do everything we possibly can. My advice is to just be sensible, perhaps increase the risk assessments you might do. If you can do a survey without the owner or the vessel manager or the manager or operator being there, even better. You don't want the broker there, keep them away. If you can do the survey on your own, that's the best thing. Look out and wear advanced PPE. Remote surveys, big challenge facing the surveying profession, I feel. I think the jury is still out. I'm very skeptical about certainly doing a remote survey on a small craft. I can see elements where you could check documentation on a big ship, but I have no idea how this is going to work on small craft, and indeed it's not quite there yet. You know, no one's pushed it that far, but I am worried about remote surveys, and I think that is a potential pitfall for a surveyor. And finally, the one thing we have seen too much of recently is surveyors working outside their areas of competency and taking on too many jobs. And that's simply what I referred to at the start of the presentation with this surge in demand for surveyors. Stick to your area of competency. You'll always get found out if you don't. And that's the best advice I can give you. So finally, a date for your diary, 9th of June. IMS actually celebrates our 30th birthday. I'm very excited about that. We are lining up an hour of online entertainment, including a bit of music and some magic. And then we will follow that with 2 hours of the IMS annual general meeting. All free to attend. Keep an eye out for that, but you will need to register to attend, and look forward to seeing some of you online there. Well, stay safe. Thanks for listening. I'm pretty much bang on time. I don't know, anyone got any questions at all? Stunned you all into silence. Okay, in which case, Lachlan, that's